Good evening. Welcome to Kentucky Tonight. I'm Renee Shaw. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight, the governor's budget address. Ordinarily, the governor of Kentucky gives a budget address to a joint session of the Kentucky General Assembly. Instead, Governor Andy Beshear has pre-recorded his budget address, which you're about to see in its entirety. After the speech, we'll be back here with reactions from 2 economic policy experts and 2 political strategists. And now, here is Governor Andy Beshear.
Good evening, everyone. I'm speaking to you tonight from our state capitol after being sworn in last week to my 2nd term as your governor. I was honored to place my hand on our family Bible with Brittany, our amazing First Lady, and our kids, Will and Lila. When I took the oath, I made a solemn pledge to continue to put politics aside, to bring our people together, and to move our state forward so that we can leave a better Kentucky for all of our children. Part of building that better Kentucky means leading by example, not tolerating or participating in hate or division, but instead leading with empathy, kindness, and compassion. That's what my faith teaches me, to love my neighbor. With the Christmas season upon us, our families are enjoying this special time of year, attending church services, spending time with loved ones, and enjoying giving to others. Here in Frankfort, we're also preparing to usher in a new year, which requires that we pass a new state budget. That's why I'm speaking to you tonight, to unveil my 2-year budget plan, which is titled Forward Together. I want all Kentuckians and our lawmakers to know it is critical that we work together so that we pass a budget that invests in our families and turns the last 4 years of progress into decades of prosperity. Right now, I see a bright future with more opportunity than at any time in my life, and it is within our grasp. The foundation of what we built together over these past 4 years gives me great confidence that we can do just that. So before we get to the new plan, let's think about how far we've come. After facing some of the biggest challenges that anyone can remember, including a global health pandemic and multiple historic natural disasters, we are rebuilding, revitalizing, and we are emerging stronger than ever. No longer a flyover state, we have become a destination for global businesses. We've secured the best 4-year period for economic growth in our history. We set a record for new private sector investment, more than $28.5 billion, the most secured by any governor. We're building the 2 largest electric vehicle battery plants on planet Earth, and we've opened the cleanest, greenest recycled paper mill and the greenest steel plant in the country. We're moving forward on huge infrastructure projects, like building the Brent Spence Companion Bridge without tolls, 4-laning the entire Mountain Parkway, and pushing I-69 forward. We've secured federal funding to run high-speed internet to every community, and many families are getting clean drinking water for the first time. We've expanded health care across the state. We've capped the price of insulin, and we've increased drug treatment and recovery services statewide. In fact, we now have the most drug treatment beds per capita in the country. We've had the best years on record for our tourism and our bourbon industries, and we passed sports betting and medical marijuana, 2 wins many said could never happen in a partisan environment. But working together with lawmakers, we passed not only those, but 627 bipartisan bills. Folks, we have record high budget surpluses and record low unemployment. We've secured the largest general fund surplus and largest rainy day fund ever, and we did it all while cutting property and income taxes. Best of all, more than 50,500 new jobs have been created these past 4 years at some of the highest wages we've ever seen. That's 50,500 more Kentuckians with the security of having a really good job. And all this progress is proof that we have gotten good things done for our families by working together. When you have historic win after historic win, there is enough credit to go around. So thank you to the General Assembly, to our local leaders, to our private sector leaders, to our nonprofits. Thank you to everyone who has helped us accomplish so much for our people. So now, it's time to do even more. And my Forward Together budget proposal does just that. This budget aims to meet our families where they are, to address the concerns they worry most about. Look, Kentuckians don't wake up every morning thinking about Democrat or Republican, and neither does this budget. Kentuckians wake up thinking about their jobs and whether they can provide for their families. They're thinking about the safety and the security of their children, their homes, and their communities. They're thinking about the condition of the roads and the bridges they travel on to get to school, to work, and to church. They're thinking about the public schools they send their kids to and how their kids are being prepared for the jobs and the opportunities of the future. These are the things that actually matter to our people, not red, not blue. These are the things that are important to everyone. This budget reflects our shared Kentucky values of family, faith, and community. Let's start with the value we place on public education. I have always been an education-first governor. I'm a proud graduate of Kentucky Public Schools, and both of my kids are in our public schools. So Brittany and I, we understand the worries of our Kentucky parents. So does your lieutenant governor, who is also a teacher. That's why we have worked hard to protect educators' pensions, and why we've worked with the General Assembly to secure modest raises, fund full-day kindergarten, and invest over $250 million in career and technical education. We've also raised the per-pupil elementary and secondary education funding by 7.5%, the biggest hike since 2008. And we made the biggest increase in post-secondary education funding since before the Great Recession. But more must be done. Our children deserve the very best education and all the opportunities coming their way. So to make sure we deliver on this promise, we must first provide an 11% raise to all public school employees, including teachers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, janitors, everyone. The National Education Association currently ranks us, Kentucky, 44th in starting teacher pay and 40th in average teacher pay. We must do better. It's simple. You cannot give a child every opportunity if they don't have a teacher in every classroom. We won't have enough bus drivers unless we pay a better wage. And we cannot remain competitive with other states if we don't pay our teachers and other employees what they're worth. This pay raise would move us to 24th place in starting teacher pay and up to 25th place in average teacher salary. Acting now would go a long way to showing our educators that we care about them by paying them closer to what they deserve. Our public schools are the backbone of every community, and in many counties, they also serve as the largest employer. In fact, teacher salaries make up 10% or more of all wages paid in 26 Kentucky counties. That's Bath, Bracken, Edmondson, Elliott, Estill, Gallatin, Garrett, Greene, Henry, Hickman, Jackson, Knott, LaRue, Leslie, Lewis, Magoffin, McCreary, Menifee, Nicholas, Owen, Owsley, Pendleton, Robertson, Spencer, Trimble, and Wolf. So just imagine the local economic impact of an 11% raise to every employee of the county's largest employer. And we have the funding to do it. These raises will not only help us recruit, but will have a major impact on local communities. Eden Gabbard, a special education teacher at Bullitt Central High School, understands this and told us that an increase in pay would not just benefit her and her coworkers, but also their students and community. Eden said, "We are at a crossroads in the world of education. We have teaching assistants, paraprofessionals, and teachers not making a living wage in some parts of the state. We have to step up to say that the future of Kentucky's education is important enough to invest now." We've also heard from Jolena Sizemore, a fifth grade teacher at Hazel Green Elementary in Laurel County. She told us an 11% raise would be life-changing, and it would make things a lot easier, and perhaps she and some of her coworkers wouldn't have to look for second and third jobs just to make ends meet. Making our teachers search for those extra jobs is unacceptable. The states around us know how important increasing teacher pay is, and they've proven it's not about politics. The Republican governor of Tennessee signed a bill this year to provide their teachers the largest pay raise in state history. This budget is our opportunity, our chance to make things right here in Kentucky. Next, We must fund universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds so that every Kentucky child is kindergarten ready and we stop learning loss before it starts. In the 2022-2023 academic year, only 46% of kindergartners were considered kindergarten ready. That's why my budget will provide $172 million each year to fund universal preschool for all 4-year-old children so that every child is kindergarten ready. The Department of Education estimates that under this plan, about 34,000 additional Kentucky 4-year-olds would be provided with a preschool education. This would be an unprecedented investment for Kentucky's children. Imagine the difference it'll make when every single Kentucky child enters kindergarten prepared to learn. Funding for universal pre-K is also the #1 most effective action we can take to get more people back to work. It takes the burden of paying for an extra year of childcare off the backs of working parents. But to make universal pre-K work and to get more folks in the workplace, we have to support and invest in childcare as well. These are the providers who are caring for and helping prepare our earliest learners. And we know that when parents cannot find quality childcare, the stress and the anxiety they feel can just become too much and drives many out of the workforce. To help, we're making a major investment. I'm including about $68 million in fiscal year 2025 and $73 million in fiscal year 2026 for child care assistance. Of that amount, $40 million a year allows us to retain the average per-day provider reimbursement rate for the Child Care Assistance Program, and about $13 million in existing federal child care development funds will be freed up due to universal preschool. And we're going to make that available to fund and target children from birth to 3-year-olds to make sure there are more child care slots for them. It also allows us to encourage additional private child care slots with an additional $15 million in fiscal year 2025 and $20 million in fiscal year 2026 from the general fund that it will be included for child care payments, again to providers who care for children from birth to 3 years old so that we can have more slots right there as they move into universal pre-K. These investments show our commitment to helping relieve the worries that parents face when it comes to their children getting quality care and the best education. My Forward Together budget also responds to recent busing issues by fully funding student transportation. And this is on top of the pay raises for our drivers. We've seen the disruption that underfunding causes. If we're serious about fixing it, we need to give our schools the resources that they need. My budget plan also funds student loan forgiveness, fully funds teacher pensions, and again ensures there will be no health insurance premium increases for school employees. It further funds teacher professional development, new textbooks, student mental health services, and continued investment in career and technical education centers all across Kentucky. And when it comes to higher education, my plan adds nearly 8% to the base budgets of our 9 public institutions over 2 years. And in our current budget, we made sure that for the first time in several years, all eligible applicants for need-based student financial aid received it. Like public education, public infrastructure is critical to building that better Kentucky we all want. In many ways, we are living through our Eisenhower moment. We're not just repairing our roads, bridges, and water systems statewide, we're also pushing ahead with some of the largest, most important public works projects ever imagined. We're building a true legacy of infrastructure in the Commonwealth, with investments that will improve the lives of Kentuckians for many decades to come. Now is the time to follow through on the important work we've started and to expand these projects to lift up every community. Having access to clean drinking water is a basic human right. So let's start by providing even more clean water to our families. I'm proposing another $500 million in grants to our counties and our local governments to continue to provide unserved families access to clean water and wastewater systems. If passed, it will build upon the $500 million we have already allocated in federal dollars since 2021 through a bipartisan agreement with the General Assembly. Seeing the impact of this program firsthand is incredible. Earlier this year, I visited with Ruth Baglin and June Vandiver, whose homes were part of the very first Cleaner Water Program project we announced. Ruth and June lived in Morton's Gap for more than 60 years without running water. Just watching them turn on the tap and be able to trust what was coming out, it was really special. The difference this made for this one family was life-changing, and it's something we owe to all of our people. It is also time to make a final push to expand high-speed internet into every home in every business across Kentucky. We've already made historic investments totaling over $590 million. Now, we secured a nearly $1.1 billion federal grant, which will be the largest public investment in high-speed internet in state history. So I'm asking the General Assembly to approve these funds for distribution. By combining federal and matching funds, we should see a nearly $2 billion investment to finally make high-speed internet a reality in every Kentucky household. Next, I'm recommending investing $10 million in general fund dollars over the next 2 years in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to provide more Kentuckians in need with affordable housing. This would mark the first investment of general funds in this program in almost 20 years. The fund typically leverages about $9 in private funds for every $1 included in the trust fund. So this should generate about $100 million in additional investment for affordable housing above and beyond what the trust fund normally does. Moving forward together also means making the investments to get major road projects done. In this budget proposal, I'm seeking $300 million over 2 years to continue and speed up the work we started on the 4-laning of the Mountain Parkway and moving the I-69 river crossing forward. These funds will further help our applications for federal grants. We must also keep supporting local projects that help our families get to those ball games, family gatherings, and to their houses of worship. That's why my new budget creates a $50 million fund for grants to repair more city and county bridges across the state. While the responsibility for repair and replacement of these bridges falls on local governments, the repair costs often far exceed available local resources. So it's time that we step up and help to make sure the bridges and the roads we travel are reliable and safe. I'm also proposing to use one-time funds to underwrite a 1-year tax credit for Kentuckians for the tolls they pay driving over the Louisville-Jefferson County bridges during the calendar year 2024. We are also making sure that our communities have an open door to the world by investing $50 million to support the state's 58 general aviation airports for development, rehabilitation, and maintenance. Since we are no longer a flyover state and we are now the destination, we must ensure our airports are working and welcome. These investments help our families and keep our red-hot economy booming. We've already cemented our status as the electric vehicle battery production capital of the United States of America. And Kentuckians should expect even more wins as we build out the EV supply chain right here. In addition to our great workers, companies looking to locate here are focused on speed to market as a critical deciding factor. And it's clear, when we have build-ready sites, we win the race for new jobs. All we have to do is look at Ford and SK On's Blue Oval SK project in Glendale. That is a $5.8 billion, 5,000 job economic development project that is the largest in our state's history. And it was made possible because of decades of investment and hard work that prepared the Hardin County megasite to land such a game-changing, state-changing project. To ensure even more communities get these opportunities, my new budget proposal invests another $200 million over the next 2 years, $100 million to prepare mega development projects, and another $100 million for county and regional site development. We know this works. Working with lawmakers, we've already dedicated $100 million to this kind of site development through our successful Kentucky Product Development Initiative. We've made key investments all across the state, including a site in Graves County's Hickory Industrial Park that has already secured a manufacturer aiding the rebuilding efforts following tornadoes that devastated Mayfield. To date, more than 47 counties have received funding to develop more build-ready sites, and a second round of funding is on the way. My budget adds urgency to this initiative and spreads the benefits to even more communities. Finally, My plan provides $15 million in the first year of the budget to help the state build a globally competitive talent development system. These funds will be used to launch a national marketing campaign, as well as targeted regional campaigns to recruit and retain top talent in Kentucky. Kentucky is attracting both more businesses and more visitors. 2022 was the best year on record for the state's tourism industry, with $12.9 billion in economic impact that sustained more than 91,600 Kentucky jobs. Now, to keep the momentum moving, we must invest more in our state parks. That is why this budget puts to use the $71 million set aside by the 2022 legislative session for improvements and repairs to these properties. The release of these funds is vital to maintain and revitalize the parks that allow every citizen to enjoy some of the Commonwealth's greatest treasures, like Cumberland Falls, Natural Bridge, Lake Barkley, and Carter Caves. Additionally, I'm proposing $184 million for another set of projects for the park system, ranging from the reconstruction of marinas and new conference centers to updating critical electrical and water systems. These parks provide tourists from all over the nation and all over the world with unique opportunities to take in the unsurpassed beauty of this great Commonwealth. And these funds will be used to ensure an experience that keeps them coming back. For all of us in state government, public safety is more than just a top priority. It's a sacred trust we have with the people we serve. As governor, but also as a dad, I believe every single Kentuckian should be able to feel safe in their community, workplace, and school. I've focused on these issues both as Attorney General and now as governor, and I'm proud of the progress we've made. Just in the last 2 years, we have taken steps that have resulted in more than an $18,800 pay bump for KSP troopers and officers. Due to these increases and the tireless efforts from the KSP recruitment branch, more than 1,000 troopers are now keeping us safe, the highest number since 2017. We've also supported training for local law enforcement officers by raising the current training stipend to an all-time high during the last budget. Like our educators, our law enforcement officers deserve to be respected and to be paid fairly for the incredible difficult work they perform on our behalf every day. To achieve that, first, I'm proposing an additional $2,500 raise for all KSP troopers and officers, and enough new funding to add 150 more troopers over the next 2 years. My budget also raises that training stipend that the state pays local and state law enforcement officers and local firefighters, and for the first time, adds certified part-time local law enforcement officers to eligibility for the fund. Approximately 8,000 law enforcement officers and over 4,100 firefighters would receive this increase. I'm proposing $35 million to fund grants for body armor to protect our law enforcement officers and first responders. This investment was inspired by KSP Trooper Billy Ball. Trooper Ball's life was saved by the protective gear he wore during a deadly shooting in Floyd County in 2022 that tragically took the lives of 3 of his fellow officers as well as a police canine. We're also supporting law enforcement with a $146.1 million investment to construct a Western Kentucky Regional Training Center to expand law enforcement training. Our law enforcement officers and first responders provide Kentuckians with safety and security daily, and they deserve the same in return. When it comes to helping our justice-involved youth and keeping them safe while in the state's juvenile detention centers, this budget provides funding for 2 new female-only juvenile detention centers, one in Fayette County and the other one in Western Kentucky. It funds the renovation of the Jefferson County Youth Detention Center, and it retrofits detention centers in Breathitt, McCracken, and Fayette counties, as well as the Linden Detention Center in Jefferson County. These projects are necessary because we cannot have low-level male offenders in the same areas as more violent offenders, and we must separate males and females in custody for their safety. But to keep more youth out of detention, we're adding additional funding, $3.9 million each year, to add approximately 450 additional placements so that more youth can be diverted from detention centers through programs like home detention. We're also doing more to help our adult inmates by expanding support for them as they re-enter society. My faith teaches me that second chance are not only possible, they're our responsibility, and we are our brother and sisters keepers. Currently, only half of the inmate population is receiving re-entry services. To change this, we're proposing to add $10.5 million over 2 years to increase re-entry services in jails and to the entire adult correctional institution inmate population. To do this, we're going to build a re-entry skilled training facility on the grounds of Eastern Kentucky Correctional Complex that will help us provide job skills training so that those who have paid their debt to society can secure and keep a good job upon their release. We currently have the lowest recidivism rate in our history. That makes us safer, and we want to keep it going. Next, let's talk about access to affordable health care. Kentuckians deserve to be safe wherever they are. They also deserve to be cared for properly and with compassion when they're sick or injured. Healthcare is a basic human right, and I've worked tirelessly to expand access to quality care in every corner of the Commonwealth. We've seen some amazing progress. We protected healthcare access for nearly 100,000 Kentuckians by removing governmental roadblocks. We relaunched and expanded the state insurance marketplace called Connect. We expanded Medicaid coverage for new mothers. We boosted our workforce by adding dental, vision, and hearing coverage. We capped the cost of insulin, and we expanded health care all over Kentucky, including working to build the first hospital in West Louisville in 150 years. To make sure we capitalize on these successes, in this budget, we fully fund Medicaid, including Medicaid expansion, to ensure that health care continues to be provided for over 1.5 million Kentuckians. We are also including new funding for 500 additional slots in the Michelle P. Waiver Program and 250 additional slots in the Supports for Community Living Waiver Program. These are critical healthcare services that Kentuckians with mental or intellectual disabilities rely on. Our administration has always treated mental health the same as physical health. So in this budget, we're taking a giant leap forward in helping Kentuckians. We're launching mobile crisis intervention services. These community-based programs will provide trained healthcare professionals to respond to Kentuckians battling addiction or behavioral health crisis. We're going to do all we can to help Kentuckians in need. Sending them to the emergency room or jail is not always the right answer, and this program provides people with the targeted help they need and deserve. And to help our most vulnerable children, we're going to continue to fund the Pediatric Research Trust Fund by adding $5 million additionally in each year. And when it comes to our children, each one deserves a safe and loving home. But the world we live in is tough. And when a parent loses the ability to care for their child, we need to do more to support relatives who want to step in as a primary caregiver. That's why I'm proposing $10 million from the general fund each fiscal year to increase rates for relative caregivers who agree to take a child that's already in the state's custody. And we're also increasing foster care rates by 12%, or $9.8 million each year. We're doing more to support those who step up and provide a loving home for each child in need. One great common element to many, if not most, of the projects included in my Forward Together budget is support for our local governments and local communities. The $500 million in water and sewer grants go to local communities for projects they select. The Product Development Initiative grants fund local plans from local officials. The Bridge Grant supports county and city bridge repairs, all decided by them and not anyone in Frankfort. That's as it should be. Being a good Team Kentucky partner means having the humility to know when others know better than you do, and the trust that they will do right by the people they serve as well. That's why my administration works closely with county judge executives, mayors, regional economic development groups, local councils, nonprofits, and other stakeholders to make sure the projects we fund have the most impact locally. And when it comes to supporting our coal communities, My budget returns 100% of the state coal severance tax revenues back to our coal-producing counties. These communities fueled this country through 2 world wars, and they deserve our continued support. Just think about the counties hit by flooding and tornadoes and the needs they have right now. These are important dollars that will help these communities thrive. So in this budget, I'm also proposing more than $75 million additional dollars to the Eastern Kentucky Safe Fund in the current fiscal year to shore up the fund and provide more resources for rebuilding our Eastern Kentucky communities. This funding builds off the good work by lawmakers and this administration to create this fund for both the East following the flooding and the West following the tornadoes. This state and local collaboration is a key part of making sure we move forward together. Another key part are our state workers. I cannot thank them enough for the work they do to better people's lives. That's why I was happy to work with lawmakers and grateful that the General Assembly passed a 14% raise for our public servants over the past 2 years. This was their first significant pay raise in more than a decade. Now I'm recommending yet another raise for state employees. I'm proposing another 6% across-the-board raise in the first year, fiscal year 2025, and in fiscal year 2026, I'm proposing another 4% increase. Combined, we would see the largest 4 years of increases that we are aware of. But remember, this is after no increases for 10 of the past 12 years, and we have seen when we pay people closer to what they're worth, we can fill these critical jobs that provide services to our people. I'm also proud that all of our budgets have fully funded state employee pensions, and they've made extra payments to reduce the unfunded liability. A pension is a promise, and it's wrong to weaken or reduce benefits that people have worked for and they've planned for, and they've planned their retirements around them. I'm going to continue to strengthen our families by ensuring retirements are lived with dignity by once again fully funding our state employees' pensions and including $209 million over the biennium to continue to pay down the pension liability. We want to thank our public servants for what you do for the people of Kentucky. We would not be building this brighter future without you. All of these investments are necessary, and the good news is we can afford them. Over the years, we have been responsible stewards of Kentuckians' dollars. The results speak for themselves. We have been efficient, consistently bringing many projects in under budget and on time, and we've built record surpluses. We secured the largest rainy day fund and general fund surplus in state history. And this new budget makes these great new investments without touching any of that record savings. Even some of our toughest critics, the credit rating agencies, have recognized our strong fiscal management and have upgraded our financial outlook and our credit ratings for the first time in a long time. This means it's going to cost us less to make many of these investments, and folks, these are investments that we can't afford not to make. In closing, I want Kentuckians to know that my priority is to work with your lawmakers to pass this plan or something close to it, because these investments help you and your communities. This plan does not focus on moving the state to the left or the right, just forward together. Last week during the inauguration, I talked about how our Commonwealth is 231 years old. And in December of our first year, United we stand, divided we fall, became our state motto. It's been with us every step of the way. Our people, like the motto, have been tested over 2 centuries. We've gotten through the hard times together, and now we're going to get to the good times together. This is exactly how we must approach our shared future. This next 2-year budget period is our chance, Kentucky's chance, to be both an economic and moral leader of this country. To get there, we have to put partisanship, division, and anger politics aside, and instead choose progress, cooperation, and continued economic momentum. I know that we can do this. I know that we can continue building that better Kentucky that we all want, one where my children and yours can stay right here at home and chase their dreams. So to everyone out there, thank you, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and may God bless the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
That was Governor Andy Beshear's budget address. Now, with reactions to it, we're joined in our Lexington studio by Charles Aul, Executive Director of the Kentucky Chamber Center for Policy and Research, Jason Bailey, Executive Director of the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy, Amy Wycliffe, Republican strategist and partner with McCarthy Strategic Solutions, and Sherman Brown, Democratic strategist and partner with McCarthy Strategic Solutions. We hope you'll send us your questions and comments by X, formerly Twitter, at KY Tonight, KET. Send an email to kytonight@ket.org or use the web form at ket.org/KY Tonight, or you can simply give us a call at 1-800-494-7605. Well, welcome everyone. Happy early holidays to you all. Mr. Bailey, I want to start with you to get your impressions about what you heard the governor propose. Education first, he led off with, and some significant enhancements when it comes to K through 12 funding for teacher raises, et cetera.
Yeah, I think a big theme we heard from the governor tonight was that we need to do more to take care of the people who take care of us, the teachers, the bus drivers, the state employees, the folks who haven't received raises for a long time, and then we're losing. I mean, we have a growing teacher and bus driver shortage. Fewer teachers are going, people are going into the teaching profession, and more are leaving. We have buses that can't get to school on time because we don't have enough drivers, and it's reached a crisis point. So one of the things that I appreciate about what the governor laid out is the need for more investment in those fundamentals. It's worked for the last few years, as the governor mentioned. When we increased state police pay, we got more state police. It reversed the attrition we were seeing there. And so I think that reinvestment, and that's the largest single item I think in this budget, the increase in school employee and teacher raises is about stemming that decline and making sure that we have the people that we need to provide the services that ultimately will make us a stronger and more effective state. And I think one of the things you'll notice the governor threw in there is that not only do teachers and other public servants help our economy in what they do, when they spend money, it also helps our economy. He listed the counties where teacher wages are more than 10% of the entire economy. So it really matters when we invest in those people. It multiplies in communities in various ways. And you know, we have fallen far behind due to budget cuts and budgets that just haven't been adequate since 2008.
Mr. Aul, I want to ask you, anything in his budget proposal as presented tonight you disagree with?
Well, I think what we actually heard in the governor's budget address is several different items where there's quite a bit of agreement and quite a bit of consensus, including not only within the broader Kentucky community, within the business community, but also within the Kentucky General Assembly. So issues such as funding for education, we heard a lot about public safety, infrastructure investment, housing, marketing the state, a whole range of different issues. I was particularly pleased to hear a strong emphasis on early childhood education, which is an area where Kentucky does need to make significant investments in. I would point out, you know, these are areas though where Kentucky has already been making good progress on a lot of these fronts, and the governor highlighted several of those items. A good example of that was the funding for state employee pay raises that the General Assembly provided. And so again, you heard a lot of areas of good agreement. How we get to those priorities and how we get to those goals, however, those details matter quite a bit. And as I was listening to the governor's remarks, several different questions were kind of ruminating in my mind, but I think two of the most important ones that came up was, in terms of overall spending, how close are we coming up against our current revenue estimates? So the Consensus Forecasting Group, which is an entity that provides estimates for how much money the state will bring in from taxpayer dollars, they recently estimated that in fiscal year 25, we're expecting about $15.5 billion. Fiscal year 26, we're looking at about $16 billion. With this proposal, are we going all the way up to that edge, or are we leaving a little bit of breathing room? Are there potential spending decreases elsewhere? And those are important things to consider.
Is that because of the income tax reduction triggers, which this budget does not really predicate itself on?
I think they're important for a couple of different reasons, but one of the most important reasons, which leads me to that second question that I had as we were listening to the governor's remarks, which is how exactly does tax reform figure into this? This is something he highlighted at the start of his remarks, noting that we've reduced income taxes, while at the same time the General Assembly has been making investments in key areas. And so I am curious to know how exactly this proposal would fit in with those broader goals of continuing to reduce the individual income tax rate. And so those are things that we'll be looking for as we get more details on this budget proposal. But those are important questions that I think we should all ask. And this is all part of the process. This is something any viewer should take note of. We'll have the governor's proposal. We'll also have a General Assembly proposal. We'll have a House proposal, a Senate proposal. And I think we'll all find out how that shakes out, maybe sometime in March.
Yeah,
if we're
or
lucky.
April. We go to April 15th this time. Ms. Wycliffe, I want to come to you about your impressions of this. One question that we constantly get about cost of living adjustments for retirees. He did not mention it, but in a press briefing earlier today, it would be a 13th check for those who were in the Kentucky Employee Retirement System and the state police retirement systems. There'll be more that comes out about that. But your impressions about what the governor shared tonight?
It's quite a wish list, right? It's always good to be the first one out of the gate to talk about all the things that you want to fund, right? And it's a lot better scenario to be in this situation where we do have some extra funds to spend. I think the first thing that comes to mind and what's going to be top of mind for the Republican supermajorities is that this budget likely abandons all possibility to reduce the personal income tax another 0.5% to get us down to 3.5%. And we know that that has been, the Republican supermajorities have been laser focused on that. And so I think what you're going to see a lot and hear from in reactions is the General Assembly is going to take a much more disciplined approach to spending. They're going to budget for the long term, not just based upon the revenues that we're seeing today. I think continuing to have that focus on a strong and healthy budget reserve trust fund is very, very important to them. And I know some people will say,
he said that he did not touch the budget reserve.
That, which is great. And so, not sure how the numbers work. We'll look forward to seeing those details, right? And I think a lot of this is looking to see exactly how that math works. But, you know, that budget reserve trust fund is so important because it's there for both unique opportunities, historic opportunities that we have as a state, but also making sure that we are prepared to step in when tragedy occurs, similar to what we saw with the tornadoes and the floods. And so I think if the General Assembly has not done what they did over the past several years, you know, those opportunities may not have been realistic at that point in time. So that's why it's important to not spend everything we have and make sure that we're thinking long term.
Mr. Brown, there are a lot of the things that the governor proposed tonight we've been hearing about trickle out through the campaign and even before then, his inauguration speech. A lot of this isn't new.
No, I mean, a lot of it didn't feel like a lot of new stuff. You know, one of the things I do want to point out is that we talked about, and Charles brought up, the viewers just to kind of know this is different. This is different that he's giving his speech and doing it from the Capitol, not in front of the General Assembly, and doing that a little bit, going back to the 2022 budget session, you know, leading into that, how that was kind of done. The House came out early with them, they preempted it, and that's kind of set up the governor now to be, you know, he's kind of taking that back here to present and get out and get in front of the legislature.
But what does this do to relationships going forward, though?
I mean, it started there. I mean, that's been a question we've had on this show where we've talked about, you know, how that's going to be and who you're working with and how that goes. He did talk about the relationships. He also talked about, as far as the budget, that it does line up with recurring spending. We talked about that. That it doesn't touch the rainy day fund. We are at a place right now where we're seeing this opportunity for these investments, and I think this is a time to really truly look at all of the across the board, every cabinet, every place where you know, government does touch these individuals, and you're, you know, talking to Kentucky families. They're not. This is what they're focused on. They're trying to figure out. You know, they're not focused on Republican and Democrat politics and everything else. They're not thinking about that. We talked, you know, when we saw the what happened in eastern Kentucky and western Kentucky with the tornadoes and the floods, that opportunity and what we're doing now to rebuild those communities is huge. And then you get into the other things that he talked about in the parkways, BEAD funding, Brent Spence Bridge, all of the things that come along with that. The thing that I'm interested in and really diving into, and when we can get to it, is also in the juvenile justice coming back, because that's been a conversation, but we really has been something he's been talking to the legislature with. Secretary Harvey and others being there to talk to them in the General Assembly during the interim, but we don't have, you know, where are we going and what's that going to look like? I'm interested to see what that
Yeah, so he
like here.
proposed, 2 female-only detention centers, juvenile detention centers, one in Fayette County, one in Western Kentucky, city, county, not defined there, and other supports for alternatives to detention, right, which some would say are sorely needed. Mr. Bailey.
I want to get back to the overall picture here and as it relates to the tax system. I mean, if you were to try to budget in a way that would trigger more income tax cuts according to the legislature's formula, you'd have to cut out everything that we're talking about and likely make cuts to programs and services and add billions more to the Budget Reserve Trust Fund, which already has $3.7 billion and would have over $5 billion by next summer when this budget actually starts. Billions more than we actually need to prepare for emergencies, to prepare for the next downturn. And we can't continue to stockpile money while we stockpile problems in our communities. I mean, if you look at some of the things that are in here, not just funding for schools, but the water and wastewater infrastructure money, which is a significant proposal in here, $500 million. These systems are out of date, and water affordability is an increasing problem, especially in our rural areas. These are things that need to be fixed. If you look at child care, we got the federal money running out for child care. Child care centers are going to close if we don't put that money in there. There's services, there's slots for people with disabilities from the Medicaid program in here. More money to clean up and address all the damage that happened in Eastern Kentucky from the floods. You couldn't do those things if you were trying to create a flatline, austere budget, because our revenue is austere from the cuts that have already gone into place flat. Our revenue's flat. Our spending would have to be flat, and so you'd have to see some cuts. So, I just want to there's a lot in here because the money is there for a budget that delivers for a change, and the money has built up. Billions is being added every year. If we don't use some of that, at some point we have to say we've got plenty for a rainy day. What about the rain that has fallen on communities like in Eastern Kentucky?
So you think some of that $3.7 billion should be tapped into?
It doesn't have to be. I think that there's enough, because over $1 billion is being added every year, right? So there's enough recurring money to be able to use to do the things that we're doing. I think you could consider taking a little out of that. It's still a lot, but you wouldn't have to, and you could still do this. And that's what the governor is proposing to do. He's proposing not to reduce the amount that's in the Budget Reserve Trust Fund.
Charles.
This is a state that has a long history of deficits and spending every single dollar that we can get right up to the point where you can simply spend no more. And I don't think that's a process that has served us well. I think having a habit and culture of saving money, of not spending every single dollar up to that last point, that is a prudent way to budget. And I think that's something that benefits the Kentucky economy in the long run, because times will come where we will need those dollars. Let's also not forget that Budget Reserve Trust Fund isn't just sitting there as a stockpile of money. We're actually seeing investment returns on those dollars for the first time in a very, very long time. So it is also generating revenue while it's also sitting there for those moments that we need it. When it comes to the reductions to the individual income tax, it's important to understand that the idea behind how the General Assembly is approaching that issue is predicated upon growth. Now, you could potentially accelerate that process by spending less or doing other types of revenue changes. But ultimately, the idea behind this is that when our economy is growing very, very rapidly, we take just a little bit of that and allow individuals who earn income, who run small businesses, who work every day, they're allowed to keep just a little bit of that. And so that's been the goal of how these individual income taxes, these reductions are supposed to work. I don't think we need an austerity budget in order to get there, but I do think we need to be highly strategic and be very targeted with our spending. And I think the General Assembly's approach to that over the past several years, that's been the approach that we've seen. And so that's an area where I'll be interested in kind of looking more into the governor's proposal, is seeing exactly how these costs all add up all together. And then are they being offset in other areas, or how exactly all these pieces fit together?
Sherman, what do we know about the governor's thinking when it comes to reducing the individual income tax even further? Does he desire for it to be totally zeroed out, or is he happy with it being 4.5% or 4%? Is there a magic number that he thinks is palatable?
I've not had a conversation with him about his exact number where he thinks that is. I mean, you've heard, kind of through the discussions through the campaign of kind of where that is, and then last session of signing the bill. I think one thing to also add in here is just on the tourism. I just kind of looked at that of the parks investments. Kind of that to me is another piece going back to kind of what Jason was talking about of different opportunities here, 91,000 jobs that are tourism kind of directly related. I mean, I think that is one thing that kind of gets overlooked when we think about tourism, people coming in for conventions, things along those lines, in the parks. He talked about those. And I was glad that when he went through some of the counties that he went through, I thought he was going to name every park as well. But going through and then looking in at just the deferred maintenance, the marinas, $184 million that he's proposing there as well. I think there's just a lot here. Amy mentioned a wish list. It's kind of a priority list. I mean, I think that is something of looking all the different opportunities that exist for Kentucky. Where we find ourselves right now is that we do have a historic opportunity, as he kind of said. And I think that's what he's proposing.
For higher education, of course, he's proposed 8% more to the base funding. We know that not to the performance-based funding,
correct,
right, to the base funding,
yeah,
which has suffered some cuts over pre-recession levels.
Interesting. To the point on where does the governor stand on further reducing the individual income tax, I think that actions and proposals speak volumes, right? And I think we have to remember he vetoed House Bill 8, the whole plan. He did sign the second time around, but he did not include the ability for that additional decrease to come. So I think we probably know, where he stands, and no judging on that. Everybody has their opinion. But, I think there are going to be some things that hopefully they can find some agreement on. I think the child care, is something that we hear repeatedly across the aisle of something that needs to be.
He's got that tethered to universal pre-K, though.
He does, which I think is going to run into some problems. I think the 11% raises for teachers is something that we've known that he was going to push forever. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that there was historic funding for education presented by and proposed and passed by the 2022 General Assembly, which included the ability for local school districts to make those raises. And I think 95% of school districts provided some type of raises for teachers with that funding.
But this approach, this would allocate to school districts within the SEEK budget. They are not allocated through the SEEK funding formula. And this is interesting. Yeah. This is an important distinction here, Mr. Bailey.
Well, what he's doing, I think, is providing the money that districts need for the 11% raise, so it's not an unfunded mandate.
Right.
So it's separately being provided to them.
And it's a guarantee?
Well, it's equal to the amount that they would need for that raise. And then I believe there's also SEEK money, an increase in the SEEK base as well.
Right.
And then another important part, we haven't talked about this, is the full funding of transportation, which would be on top of the 11% raise for bus drivers, would be fully funding transportation, which we have not done. I mean, record funding, we have not fully funded transportation since 2004. SEEK funding is about 34% below 2008 levels now, once you take inflation into account. And we just Friday, the Department of Education put out the annual data on teacher pay. And teachers are making on average 14% less than they were before the Great Recession in Kentucky, 14%. So the 11% is pretty modest in a lot of ways. But it combined with the other things in here, I think would be a probably the most significant reinvestment in education we've had since the Kentucky Education Reform Act, which was in response to a court ruling. But we have the money to do that now. We have billions that are being stockpiled in reserves. Billions more will be added there over the next 2 years if we don't finally reinvest in these things. And it's really past time. The buses are a great example of how these basic systems are getting near to a breaking point. We have to put more money back into them.
Ms. Wickliffe, I do have to ask you a question about the process and the few minutes we have remaining, that the fact that the governor decided to do this a week after he was inaugurated, the session has not even begun. The Kentucky General Assembly has not convened. This is unprecedented to do this not before a joint session of the House and Senate during a legislative session. It
is, and I have to, kind of wonder, you miss that kind of in-person presentation and that immediate reaction from legislators that both, you can interview people right after the fact and get real-time interviews. So I do miss that. Hopefully he'll be with us for a State of the Commonwealth in front of a joint session. But listen, we knew that the House was likely going to present their budget early again. They've been working all summer long, so it's about ready to roll, and the House sees no reason to hold back and delay the process of seeing their budget. And so this was the governor's opportunity to get his proposal out there to hopefully maybe have some things included. I will say
and that's what he said as well.
It's always great to have the most important policy document that the General Assembly considers every 2 years out early, right? The more time for people to look at it, for stakeholders to engage, we talk about transparency in government a lot. This is it, right? The governor now has laid out on the table exactly what his wish list is, what his priorities are going to be. Now the focus will turn to what the House's priorities will look like, and then the Senate. And then at the end of the day, the budget that becomes law is that budget that is passed by the General Assembly. And so we'll be looking forward to see how this kind of molds itself as it goes along.
Yeah. Any final comment or thought on that, Chairman Brown?
No, I
On
mean,
process.
I agree. I agree with Amy actually that having all the information out early is helpful. I think it's helpful for a lot of ways. I mean, and all the information that you can get. I am hopeful that, and we talked a little bit about the relationship between the legislature and the governor. I think a lot of that gets discussed of, they're not talking to me, and it's both sides saying this, right? I think that this is that opportunity. The information's out there. We've had the interim committees have been going. They've been talking to the executive branch. I mean, you've had the secretaries in. They're working together. We're seeing it literally with the juvenile justice, which is probably one of the biggest. We've got a lot of problems, but one of the problems that we've got right now that really needs addressing. And you're seeing a cooperation and trying to figure out where that is. That could have easily been used in campaign stuff. There could have been a lot of different things that happened. Didn't happen on either side. So no, I'm excited for that, and goes back to just the education pieces. I'll let somebody else jump in here.
Yeah, sure.
I do
Real
have
quickly.
one last piece. I would be remiss if we did not send well wishes to Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe and Lieutenant Governor
Yes.
Jacqueline Coleman.
That was going to be my last remarks.
Oh, sorry.
Both of them, and we reported that earlier today. Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe had an accident with her family horse, and she is recovering. And then our thoughts and well wishes also go to Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman, who had a double mastectomy today. And so those two women are in our thoughts and prayers, and we will see you around the Capitol very soon, ladies. That'll do it for us for the year for Kentucky Tonight, and I will be back with you January whatever day, 2nd for the General Assembly. January 8th, we'll discuss the start of the Kentucky General Assembly and all that's happened. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Take good care.